Round of applause for our guests. All right, can we start off just by introducing yourselves and your position and what you bring to the single stair issue?
Hi everyone, I'm Drake Warren. I am the Democratic nominee for Cook County Board of Commissioners in the 10th District. I care about single stair reform because I like all the nerdy under the hood stuff that can make housing more affordable, and I'm a renter that would like to own one day, and in the meantime live in a unit with more than one room and more than one window.
Hey everybody, good afternoon. I'm Matt Martin. I'm the alderman in Chicago's 47th Ward on the north side. Housing is the biggest issue that people bring up in our community, especially the loss of some of those family-sized homes. Your 2 and 3 flats getting converted into single-family homes or even torn down entirely to create a double lot. So we're hearing about it a lot, and I have had the fortune of working with great organizers to introduce legislation to bring single-stair reform to Chicago.
Thank you. I'm Bennett Lawson. I'm the alderman of Chicago's 44th Ward. I'm Matt's neighbor to the southeast. If you've been to Wrigley Field, you've been to my neighborhood. It's all full of yellow right now. But I am the vice chair of the zoning committee, a co-sponsor of the single stair ordinance, and have been one of the folks helping to push some of our more consequential housing pieces this term. So thanks for having me.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kam Buckner. I have the pleasure of representing the 26th District in the Illinois House of Representatives. The district is essentially Oak Street Beach down to the Indiana border, so Chicago's lakefront. And the reason I care so much about this is that I've tried in my role in Springfield to try to create policy that can help create density with dignity. And when we look at these archaic rules and laws, I think that we're using, I told somebody yesterday, we're using blockbuster policy for Netflix time. So we got to change that.
A beautiful metaphor. All right, well, Drake, can we start with you? Can you just tell us a little bit broadly about Chicago's housing shortage, kind of how we got here, how it affects housing pricing in general?
When Chicago's population was booming, housing stayed pretty affordable and accessible because Chicago was building a lot of housing of a lot of different types all over the city. And as Chicago got more into the Depression, war, post-war time, a few big things happened. 1, Chicago became a lot more racially diverse. 2, a middle class began to emerge and became more of its own distinct class. And 3, as we got more into the 60s, a lot of explicitly racist policy like redlining and racial covenants became illegal. So in order to control the race and class makeup of neighborhoods, people turned to restrictions on housing type in order to accomplish that. So we saw ADUs banned, things like cottage clusters. We saw huge swaths of the city downzoned, so the number of units allowed in many cases became 1. So in effect, in much of the city, we banned all but the most expensive type of housing, single-family housing. And that is why we now see people struggling to ever get a first home. We see people in bidding wars just for rent, just to wind up paying a higher number every month that builds them no wealth. And it's why we see people who have lived in Chicago for generations unable to find a family-sized apartment unit because those mostly don't exist, and being outbid by a couple of lawyers maybe for the few single-family homes they can find that are maybe starting at $500,000. So if we want to see Chicago's working class be healthy, we need to adopt and replace these with more family, working class friendly housing policies. So we're all gonna do that. We're gonna fix all of the other problems, and everything's gonna be awesome forever.
Love it. Thank you. Alderman Martin, can you tell us a bit about single stair? Kind of give us a single stair 101, what it is, how it would help Chicago, maybe speak to the safety record a little bit too?
Yeah, so an increasing number of cities across the country and even states are moving towards single stair. And some of the skits that were shared with us earlier went into some of the reasons why. You get more family-sized units, more affordable homes. Here in Chicago, if you have a new development that has 10 or more units in it, at least 20% of those homes need to be priced affordably. So it makes all the sense in the world that we do this. New York and Seattle have been doing this for decades. And when Pew Charitable Trust looked into the safety record, because that's the big thing that people bring up, right? They say, oh, isn't it great to have 2 exits instead of 1, especially with our horrible fire history here in Chicago? Why would we want to move away from that? But if you look at the experiences of other cities, you see that over the 12-year period that they were looking at in recent memory, there wasn't a single fire death associated with single stair in either of those 2 cities. And so Baltimore has been moving to do this. Austin has been moving to do this. Entire states like Texas are doing this. So why shouldn't we be doing the same? So we introduced this legislation, had a subject matter hearing a few months ago in the zoning committee, where Bennett's the co-chair, vice chair. And it was an interesting conversation because we presented a lot of information, including having the fire marshal from Seattle come and talk about all the ways in which this has worked in that city that's really booming, and the ways that we want Chicago to boom again, like we had in the 1940s, 50s, as Drake was mentioning. And so we've got some work to do, candidly. We've got a fire department and a buildings department that are still concerned primarily about safety issues and also some of the unique quirks about Chicago. Some of our lots, they're about 25 feet wide. It's a little bit narrower than some other places. And so we do need to right size the code so that single stair works in Chicago, but it's going to get us more homes, more family sized homes, and oftentimes pencil out when developments otherwise wouldn't, because you can save maybe 5% of costs if you go from 2 staircases to a single staircase, again, still having that good safety record. And so what we've done, even just with our substitute ordinance, is say, okay, let's have self-closing doors to prevent smoke from spreading. Let's have 2-hour fire safety rated corridors. Let's make sure that you have sprinkler systems everywhere. Again, trying to address some of these safety issues and pulling from some of the best parts from Seattle and New York. So if some of our peer cities have been leading the way, not just for years, but for decades, I think it's time for Chicago to step up and borrow those great ideas so that we can build more homes and more affordable homes.
Thank you for that. Alderman Lawson, can you tell us a little bit about what's going on at the city level and how single stair fits into the greater picture of affordable housing strategy for Chicago?
Sure. So, like Alderman Martin said, we had a very productive hearing in June. It's all online, so you can go to the city clerk's website and watch it. It's very interesting to hear some of the arguments against it and how they don't always hold up so well. And I appreciate your skit about Chicago Fire. Thank you, Dick Wolf. I think so. Thank you. I needed that. We passed the ADU ordinance last summer, and it took a long time. And it's person by person, vote by vote. How does this impact my neighborhood? We still had to make a deal on it. We still have some cleanup to do. I know that we're not done. But it's in that vein that we're looking at ways to nip around the edges of the zoning code. How can we get housing into existing spaces that are being unused? I've got a chiropractor changing his office to an apartment because he doesn't need an office anymore, because he doesn't need paper records when he built the thing 20 years ago, right? Back storerooms in commercial buildings. We've allowed rear units as long as commercial's in front on a commercial street, a B&C zone street. There's a lot of little things that we've done, but the big stuff like this, where you're involving an entire department that has a union that is very involved, and let me tell you, fire is emotional. We had a few calls of folks to my office of people who did not understand why we would do anything that the fire department didn't approve of because they had lost someone in a fire. And that's a conversation that's going to be very difficult to have in talking about this may actually be safer and prevent fire death if it's sprinklered. There's also some common sense things, I think. I live in a 4-flat. We have 2 stairs. The doors are 4 feet away from each other, right? And now I use my front stairs and my back stairs differently, oddly enough. But I mean, if there's a fire in my hallway, I'm not getting to either stair. And so how useful are the 2 stairs that we have right now, other than a move-in one and one that stays nice, is something I even question for a 20-year-old building. So I think, like with ADUs, it's person by person. Given the timing on everything of this term, I'm not sure that I don't know that we're going to see a whole lot. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't try, because the work we do now becomes part of the conversation in the election, because housing is going to be a top issue in this election. And what are we doing? Where are the alders at? Where they've been voting is going to be really important. And so we want to make sure everybody stays plugged in on all of those issues. Yeah.
And then Rep. Buckner, can you tell us a bit about what's going on at the state level and the Build Act and how single stair fits into all that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have the honor of being the House sponsor of what I really think is an intrepid, visionary new housing plan for the entire state of Illinois. Earlier in January, Governor Pritzker put together a large piece of policy that would deal with a number of the impediments to creating more affordable housing, not just in Chicago, but throughout the state in each of the 102 counties. And they include single stair reform. They include ADUs and cottage clusters and carriage houses. They include lot size reform. They also include things with processing fees and all of the impediments that people find when it comes to how we try to build housing by right is in there. And so there's a lot of things that are tailored to making sure that we deal with the missing middle here in the state of Illinois. I think we got really close this year to getting something done before the May 31st deadline, but if anybody has paid attention to the way Springfield works, May is a very interesting time, and so things happen and things fall off. But I think many of my colleagues who were not well briefed into what this looks like, they're now excited about it. They now understand that we've done things this way for a very long time, that we require some zoning reform. We require to remove those impediments so that we can move forward. When you look at the single stair issue in particular, explaining to my colleagues that for a very long time we were doing this the right way. When you look at, once again, Chicago courtyards, when you look at New York walk-ups, when you look at San Francisco flats and Boston triple deckers, we had the blueprint on how to move this in the correct way. And so I think a lot of it is educating folks that if we decide to switch the way we've operated, that we're not going backwards, we're actually creating the space that we need to do this the right way. And so there's a pun, we know the steps. And the answer is staring us right in the face. We'll figure it out. You like that?
That's your first time up here.
And that's all. Good night. All right, so one more question for all of you. We'd love to hear just for a quick answer to, if someone supports single stair reform, what should they do if they want to see more safe, family-sized, help fix the missing middle housing crisis? What's like the CTA? What's the action they should do?
Contact your elected representatives and join a pro-housing organization. I'd recommend Abundant Housing Illinois, Strong Town Chicago, or the Chicago Growth Project.
I would suggest getting active in your neighbors association. In addition to reaching out to your say alderperson directly, have a bunch of people on your block or your community also reach out so that they know this isn't just like one or two people's pet issues. This is something that entire communities want to see.
Just to add to that, I should have said this earlier, we have alders that are actively upzoning their ward to allow for 2 flats and 3 flats. Pay attention, because there are other alders actively downzoning their wards to prevent development, and it's all over the city. But I think I've seen more of that in this term than I ever did previously, and they're doing it with our great friends at DPD, and they're doing it in a plan, and they want more housing than just single family. So pay attention to the ones who maybe they haven't signed off on single stair, but they're going in the right direction. Maybe they all voted for ADUs, but other things that we can look at to say that this is somebody we should be working with and that will understand where we're going.
I would just add, everything they said is totally correct. Just say something, right? Speak up, be a voice, because what we see in these conversations is that often the centers are way louder than the folks who want this to happen. And so please don't get drowned out. Please let your thoughts, your ideas, and your observations be known so we can get this stuff done.
All right, let's give our guests a round of applause.